Imagine this, you're out in the wilderness, somewhere in the early 1800s.
Oh, wow.
Part of the Lewis and Clark expedition, charting this huge new territory America just bought.
Okay.
Louisiana Purchase, right?
Right.
But suddenly, a huge downpour turns a little ravine into this raging river.
Oh, no.
And you're clinging to the mud, trying to hold on to your baby.
That's terrifying.
Yeah, it's a true story.
Really?
Yeah, happened to Sacagawea.
Wow.
You know, the Native American woman who was so important to that whole expedition.
Yeah, of course. She's like a legend.
But that's just one story that comes to mind when I think about Thomas Jefferson.
Oh, yeah, for sure. He's such a pivotal figure.
And that's what this deep dive is all about, Thomas Jefferson.
Okay, cool.
We're going to try to understand him, you know, not just as a president, but as a person.
So, like, what kind of forces are we looking at?
Well, I've got some excerpts from a history podcast
Cool.
and then some of Jefferson's letters.
Wow, the real deal.
And we'll even look at this kind of scandalous newspaper article from back then.
Ooh, juicy. I love those.
But before we jump into all that, if you're enjoying this deep dive so far, do us a favor and hit that subscribe button.
Yeah, come on, join the party.
Okay, so let's go back to 1801. Jefferson becomes president.
Oh, okay.
Now, this is like a super divided time in politics.
Oh, I bet.
But in his first speech as president, he's all about unity, you know?
Yeah, it makes sense.
He was like, we are all Republicans, we are all Federalists.
So trying to bridge the gap there.
Exactly. And his vision was this, like, Democratic Republican America
Okay.
with a smaller federal government, more focus on individual liberty.
So kind of a power to the people kind of thing?
Yeah, kind of.
But I mean, how did that actually play out? Like, did he really shrink the government?
Well, that's where it gets interesting.
Okay, I'm listening.
He did a lot to actually shrink the government. You know, he cut taxes,
Oh, wow.
reduced the military, somehow even ran a budget surplus.
Pretty impressive.
Yeah, but he was also a pragmatist.
Okay, so not just all talk.
Exactly. Sometimes his actions didn't totally line up with that whole small government idea.
So, like, what's an example of that? Where did he sort of bend his own rules?
Well, for example, he actually established West Point Military Academy.
Really? But wasn't he, like, cutting back on military spending?
Exactly.
So why West Point?
He recognized that you still need really well-trained officers, even if you're downsizing the Army overall.
Ah, so thinking long term.
Right, like a strategic investment in the country's future security.
That makes sense.
So he wasn't totally against big government per se.
I see. More like he was picking his battles.
Exactly. It's all way more nuanced than just Jefferson equals small government.
Yeah, way more interesting than that.
Totally. And probably the best example of this is the Louisiana Purchase.
Okay, now that's a big one.
Huge.
So set the scene for me. What was going on back then?
So it's 1803, and Spain just gave control of the whole Louisiana territory to France,
Whoa.
which basically puts Napoleon right on America's doorstep.
Uh-oh, not good.
Yeah, not good for American trade, definitely not good for westward expansion.
Yeah, I could see that being a problem.
So what does Jefferson do? He sends James Monroe to Paris
Okay.
to try and buy New Orleans.
Just New Orleans?
Well, at first, yeah.
Okay, why just New Orleans?
Controlling that port was, like, super important for trade.
Got it.
But then Napoleon, he throws a curveball.
Uh-oh, what's he up to?
He offers to sell the entire Louisiana territory.
The whole thing. Wow, that's bold.
Totally unexpected.
So what does Jefferson do? He's Mr. Small Government, right?
Right. And the Constitution doesn't exactly say the president can just go buy huge chunks of land.
Huh, good point. So was he tempted? I mean, double the size of the country, that's got to be appealing.
Oh, he was definitely tempted, but he was a strict constructionist, you know?
What does that mean?
Like, he believed in sticking really closely to what the Constitution actually says.
Okay, got it.
In fact, he criticized the Federalists for not doing that.
Interesting.
So it puts him in a tough spot.
Yeah, I can see that.
But he finds a way to justify it.
Okay, how?
He ends up using arguments from his political rival, Alexander Hamilton.
No way, really?
Yeah, Hamilton believed in a broader interpretation of the Constitution.
Okay, so Jefferson kind of borrowed from his opponent's playbook to make this happen.
Exactly. He was a shrewd politician, no doubt.
Fascinating.
And it totally changed the course of American history.
I mean, it's hard to overstate the impact of the Louisiana Purchase.
Right. It doubled the size of the country.
Opened up all that land for westward expansion.
Exactly.
And speaking of westward expansion, that leads us right into the Lewis and Clark expedition.
Oh, yeah, that's a whole other adventure.
But before we get there, I think we need to address something else, something maybe a little uncomfortable.
Yeah, you're talking about Sally Hemings, right?
Yeah, that's the one.
Let's take a break and then come back and unpack that story. So Sally Hemings, this is a tough one to talk about.
Yeah, it really is. We have to be careful.
Right? I mean, it's history, but it's also about real people.
Exactly. So in 1802,
Okay.
this article comes out in a Richmond newspaper accusing Jefferson of having this inappropriate relationship with Sally Hemings.
Who was Sally Hemings?
She was a young woman enslaved by Jefferson.
Whoa. Okay, so this is serious stuff.
It was a huge scandal. I mean, people were whispering about it before.
Really?
Oh, yeah, rumors were going around for years.
But this article really brought it out into the open. So, was it true? Like, did they have a relationship?
Honestly, we can't know for sure.
That's frustrating.
I know, right? It's tough with history sometimes, especially when you're talking about personal relationships from so long ago.
I guess it's all about interpretation.
In a way, yeah, but we do have to remember the context.
What do you mean?
Well, we can't forget the power dynamics at play here.
Right, she was enslaved by him.
Exactly. She had no power, no real choice in the matter.
So even if there were some feelings involved, it's still deeply problematic.
Absolutely. We can't ignore that power imbalance.
Makes you think, this guy who wrote about liberty and equality also owned slaves.
Yeah, it's a real contradiction. It's messy, uncomfortable history.
It is, but important to talk about.
For sure, understanding these complexities helps us understand Jefferson, but also the whole era.
Well said. Okay, so let's move on. Tell me about the Lewis and Clark expedition.
Okay, so it's 1804, a year after the Louisiana Purchase, and Jefferson wants to make sure America really controls all that new land.
Makes sense.
Plus, he wants to know what's out there, and possibilities.
Okay.
So he picks Meriwether Lewis.
His personal secretary, right?
Yep, and William Clark.
Tough frontiersman.
Right? Knows his way around, and a great map maker, too.
Perfect for the job. So what exactly did he want them to do? Just map out the territory?
It was more than just mapping.
Okay, what else?
He wanted trade routes to the Pacific, new relationships with the Native American tribes out there.
Wow.
And just tons of information about the plants, the animals, everything.
So it was about a lot more than just claiming the land.
Oh, yeah, for sure. This was part of his whole vision for America.
Okay, I'm listening.
He called it an empire of liberty, stretching all the way to the Pacific.
So westward expansion was key to this vision.
Absolutely.
Wow. And this is all happening just a few years after he becomes president.
It's a pretty bold vision, right?
Very bold.
So Lewis and Clark, they put together this crew.
Okay.
Soldiers, frontiersmen, interpreters, all kinds of skills.
But wasn't there a Native American woman?
You're thinking of Sacagawea.
Right. Sacagawea, what was her role?
Oh, she was crucial, truly invaluable.
How so?
She was a guide, translator, even helped them make peace with some tribes.
Wow, that's incredible.
And remember that story we talked about at the beginning?
Did flash flood?
Yeah, that's just one example of how tough and resourceful she was.
So she wasn't just along for the ride.
Definitely not. She was a key part of the team.
What else did she do?
Oh, she helped them get horses from the Shoshone, crucial for crossing the Rockies.
So she really helped them succeed.
In so many ways. And it's sad because for a long time, history books didn't give her enough credit.
Yeah, I've heard that.
But now people are starting to recognize her contributions more.
Good. She deserves it. So what can we learn about her from the expedition journals?
Well, you see her strength and her courage in those pages.
Give me an example.
One time, their boat capsized.
Oh, man.
Yeah, a sudden windstorm, lost a bunch of supplies.
That's awful.
But she stayed calm, jumped into action, and saved the day.
Wow. A real hero.
But the journals also show the bad stuff, like how her husband treated her poorly.
Ugh, that's terrible.
Yeah, it reminds you that even in these stories of adventure, there's still so much injustice.
Sad, but true. But let's talk about the good stuff. Did they make it to the Pacific?
They did, after more than a year of tough travel, harsh weather, everything you can imagine.
They must have been exhausted.
Oh, definitely. But in November 1805, they finally reached the Pacific coast.
Wow, I bet that was an amazing feeling.
Must have been incredible.
So what did they do then? Head straight back.
They built a fort to spend the winter.
Where was that?
Near what's now Astoria, Oregon. They called it Fort Clatsop.
Cool.
They rested, restocked, got ready for the trip home, and they kept learning about the area, the plants, the animals, the Clatsop and Chinook people who lived there.
So they were constantly gathering information.
Yeah, Jefferson wanted as much detail as possible.
What about those trade routes to the Pacific? Did they find any?
Those were harder to come by.
I can imagine. The Rockies are a pretty big obstacle.
You got it. And the rivers, they weren't easy to navigate either.
So no direct water route.
Not this time, but what they did was pave the way for others. Their maps, their journals, all that info was so valuable.
So even if they didn't tick every box on Jefferson's list.
It was still a major win for America.
Understanding the West, the Native American tribes, all of it.
Exactly. It really fueled the whole westward expansion.
Wow, what a story. And you know what else happened around this time?
What's that?
A duel between Alexander Hamilton and Aaron Burr.
Oh man, that's a whole other deep dive right there.
Wow, a duel. Founding fathers at dawn, pistols at 10 paces.
It's like something out of a movie.
So what was the beef between Hamilton and Burr?
Years of rivalry. I mean, these two brilliant guys, ambitious,
Okay.
but total opposites,
Like how so?
Hamilton, he was a Federalist through and through.
Strong central government, all that?
Exactly, and a big fan of a powerful national economy.
Okay, and Burr.
More of a Democratic Republican, states' rights, limited government.
So their rivalry was about more than just personality. It was about the future of America.
Oh, absolutely. They had totally different visions for the country.
And this all played out in the political arena.
Oh, yeah. They were constantly clashing, shaping those early years of the Republic.
I bet it got pretty intense.
It did. And over time, it got personal,
Oh, yeah. Pride, ego.
Yeah.
Maybe a little jealousy mixed in there.
Probably all of the above. And in those days, politics was a blood sport.
What do you mean?
Well, personal insults could easily escalate into public confrontations.
So a duel wasn't totally out of the question.
Sadly, no. It was seen as an acceptable way to defend your honor back then.
So what was the final straw? What pushed them over the edge?
The 1804 New York governor's race, Burr was running,
Okay.
and Hamilton, he just couldn't resist sticking his nose in.
What did he do?
Campaigning against Burr, spreading rumors, using all his influence to sabotage him.
So this is personal revenge, not just politics.
Yeah, it really crossed the line. And for Burr, well, he felt like his honor had been challenged.
So a duel was the only option in his mind.
It was the code of honor back then, twisted as it seems now.
It's hard to believe they actually did this, like something out of a history book.
Oh, it was real and dangerous. People died in these duels.
Okay, so paint me a picture. Weehawken, New Jersey, July 1804. What's the scene?
Early morning, mist rising off the Hudson River.
Okay.
Two men, their seconds, pistols in hand.
And tense.
You can feel the tension, just the sound of the birds in the water.
And this wasn't some performance. They were really going to shoot at each other.
Oh, yeah, one shot each. That was the rule.
So what happened? Who fired first?
It's still debated, but most accounts say Burr shot first, hit Hamilton right in the stomach.
Oh, wow.
Hamilton, he was mortally wounded. His shot went wild. Maybe he fired in the air. Nobody knows for sure.
What a tragic end, a rivalry that just went too far.
It was a huge loss. Hamilton, gone at 49.
And what about Burr?
Acquitted of murder, but his reputation was shattered. His political career over.
Wow. Talk about consequences.
Yeah, a dark
Yeah.
ending to a brilliant mind forever tied to this duel.
It makes you think ambition, pride, it can all lead to such destructive paths.
For sure, and it reminds you that these big historical events, they're often driven by very human emotions.
Well said. We've covered a lot of ground today. From presidential triumphs to personal scandals to duels at dawn.
It's been quite a journey through Jefferson's world.
It has. We've seen his brilliance, his flaws, the complexities of the man and his time.
And I think that's what makes history so fascinating, right? The stories are never simple, they're full of contradictions.
And that's what we try to do here on the Deep Dive. Unpack those contradictions, explore the gray areas.
Exactly, because that's where the real insights are.
Well said. And if you've enjoyed this deep dive with us, be sure to subscribe to the show.
We'd love to have you along for the ride.
And we'll be back soon with another fascinating episode. Until then, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.